watching the Hub Network. The Studio Show. People. Community. Progress. Here is your host, Joe Kennedy.
I am Joe Kennedy here this morning, and a little puny today, a little under the weather, a little bit coughing and sneezing. I think that's going around. Everybody's had a little bit of that, so voice is obviously a little bit different today, and we'll deal with a few, hopefully, coughs and all that kind of stuff. We'll try to keep them out of the microphone if we can. Welcome to the Studio Show. This is really show number 13, and we're still waiting to see if Charlie's going to make it today. I don't know if he will or not, but if not, we've got a secondary plan here as well. We'll tell you what that is here in just a minute once we find out. So welcome everyone to the show. Glad you're with us. We've had quite a few guests on over the last couple months, and we've got a lot booked coming up down the road this summer and on into the fall. A lot of exciting things to talk about in the fall. Of course, we'll be doing the football games again this year, and we're going to add to that again this year Coach's Corner, a coach's show that will feature Coach Morgan, of course, and maybe some other players and interviews and other things that we can work into that as well, along with our commentary team, James Koffelt, Travis Perry, and Bruce Vogt will all be joining us for that show. We'll have some analysis. We'll go over some stats when we get to see some replays and some highlights of the prior game. And we'll get a chance to hear directly, of course, from Coach Morgan on his review of the game. We hear from him every game at the end at the Blue Sky Bank post-game interview, and we appreciate his willingness to provide us access to do that. We've done that for years and years, and he is very faithful and available to give us our microphone there and ask you a couple questions and see how he's feeling. And regardless, of course, they had a great year last year, and it's easy to do the interviews when you win every game, right? It's a little tougher to do the interview. The ending interview in the finals was a tough interview to do, but he still was very faithful to be right there and give us some insight on how he was feeling, how the team was feeling, and all that. So we appreciate his willingness to do that because we know it's not always the easiest thing in the world. So we look forward to doing that again this year. So stay with us on that. We've got some new things coming up here that we'll talk about as well. In programming, we're adding to those items as we go along, and you're going to see, I think, some things that will really benefit the community. We hope they will also be not only informative, bring a little different slant to things, but be entertaining and engaging as well with the information, not the same old boring information. Of course, we're going to cover, like we mentioned, the Cushing City Commission meetings, and we're going to simulcast those. Technology has changed to the point where we can now do that a lot easier than we could before. Before, when we were broadcasting, years ago when we were rebroadcasting the City Commission meetings, we had to run a lot of cable, set up cameras, bring a trailer down there, produce it all in that trailer. It took a lot of people, took a lot of time, took a lot of effort to get all that done, and it's just tough to continue doing that when you have, especially through a season of COVID and people's availability obviously gets tougher. But the good thing about COVID, that time of the pandemic, is that everybody kind of increased their technology. We had to go to some Zoom meetings and all that kind of stuff. So everything became a little bit more available to us where we could do some of these things. Now we're back to the point where we can kind of get that done, and that's what we're going to be doing. So let me give you a little update here real quick on some things that we've kind of been following and talking about on the Studio Show and on election coverage and some other things. As you know, Trudy Evans and Brian Swanzinger were running for a school board seat or contested there, of course. Trudy was the incumbent, Brian Swanzinger the challenger. Brian Swanzinger, after winning that election, did make a statement to the board in person that he would not be able to fill that seat as he understood. And there was some confusion on the timing of how all that happened, but bottom line is that Mr. Swanzinger wasn't able to take that seat, and so he left that seat open and declared that to the board. At that point, the board had a decision to make on how they would handle filling that seat, and they decided to put out applications to those who wanted to serve. They did receive some applications, of course. Trudy being the challenger, or not the challenger, but the incumbent that did not win the election, she, of course, put her application back in, saying she still has a desire to serve. And so she was one of the 3 applications that were received by the school board. So Trudy had hers in there as well. The other 2 were Colin McCauley, as I understand it, and Chandra Moyer were the other 2 that did file applications to say that we're willing to sit and serve on that board. And so my understanding from the board meeting last night, a couple of things went on. Is one, they discussed that, and they are going to review and interview those candidates just to see where they're coming from, what their desire is to serve, how they want to serve, and probably get some answers to that just as candidates. And then they'll try to make the best selection they can to fill that seat. And so that will probably go forward. Those interviews take place on Monday. And so I would assume that all 3 of those applicants will have an opportunity to go before the board and state their desire to serve and why they want to do that. And the board will make a decision thereafter. Now, maybe the next board meeting, I don't really know what the timing on that is, but it may be another board meeting, or there might be a special meeting in there somehow. I'm not exactly sure how that was going to work, but they will make a decision at some point. Coach Shoup, president of the school board, did tell me a few weeks ago that it could take a couple of months to get all that resolved based on the process. And that's really before we knew the results of the election. That was just kind of surmising that if that were the case, it would take a little bit to kind of get all that line back out. So they're working on that, and that is the current status of the school board decision to fill seat 3, I believe, on the school board. So those 3 candidates, again, will be considered. And, of course, if you have any questions about that, you can give the school board a call and inquire a little bit deeper if you want to. We'll continue to follow it and get some more information for you as we get it in here, and we'll certainly disseminate that. Now, the other thing that happened at the school board meeting last night, I was told the other day that there was a resignation, and we had Mr. Danny White here in studio the other day, and that was the big question we asked him last month, or about 6 weeks ago or so, if he was going to continue after this year, or if he would resign, or not resign, but retire, and move to a different stage in his career there. And so he has decided to do that. So he told me the other night that June 1st would effectively be his retirement date. And so if you've kept up with the band and the things that are going on there, you know that there's already been a kind of a transition set in place. People have been brought in the assumption that eventually, of course, Danny would retire and move on. And so that plan is fully in place for that transition to happen. And so, but Danny will step away and retire, and so he will not be in the driver's seat as the CHS band director over that program next year. So kind of interesting. I thought maybe he might hang on for another year or 2, but it was time, and so he feels like that everything is in place, and the people that he has there, his daughter, of course, Jusula, and Mr. Smith, and the rest of the team there, Ryan Smith, are in good shape and in good standing to carry that program on, and I think they're going to do a very good job. The students certainly like them, and I think the band program will be in good hands as it goes forward. So all the other news there from the school board is that I believe that was on the agenda as well last night at the school board, that Mr. White's retirement is pending and effective June 1st, and so that'll change things, of course. Of course, things are changing a little bit at the football field. Of course, everyone knows that one of the big income fundraisers for the band is a concession stand at the Friday night football games. They run that. The quarterback club runs it on Saturdays for the Pee Wee football and youth center football. But Friday nights, all of that revenue goes to the band booster program. And of course, they'll have a new concession stand down there, which we're very excited about. And so there's been some transition there too. Wendy Klaus, who has been a big part of the band booster program for years and years and years, she's kind of really taken that on for a long time. She has turned that over, and there's kind of a committee now running that, not taking it all on like Wendy did. Of course, they saw some of the struggles that she had, and it's just a lot of work. And so they've got that split up between 5 or 6, 7 people, and I think it's going to run very efficiently. But you'll see some changes there in the concession stand. You'll see some differences next year, of course, with the new facility and how things go a little bit and process and the availability of all the concessions there. But you'll see some new faces in there as well. And if you want to volunteer, I know they wouldn't turn that down at all. They always need volunteers. It's a very worthwhile cause to help those band students. Band boosters do a lot of things for the band program, which includes sometimes travel to contests, when they go to contests or far trips far away. They buy lunches, of course, kind of like the quarterback club does for the football team. They will provide lunch, provide food for the band students. Also, some trips, parts of those trips are paid for the band boosters, for the band students through the band boosters. And also, probably the big thing, though, is that there are scholarships, and the band boosters raise money for that every year. And the Dustin Jusela Award is their biggest one. Of course, Mr. Jusela was part of the band program for 1 year. And what an impact he made on the band program the year that he was there. That was a couple years ago, and he, of course, passed away in a car accident. But that fund has been set up to provide a scholarship each year to really the top band student that is going to go forward and further education in music. Really, it is intended to keep students engaged in developing their music career and possibly teaching music or going on further in their music career in some way. And that scholarship was $1,000 this year. Grayson Jenkins was the recipient of that. And there were also 3 other recipients of $600 scholarships in the band program too. So the band boosters cover a lot of things that help students go on to further their education and further their music career. And so that's a very important thing for them. So when you see the concession stand set up out there, just remember that you're going out there, you're not just supporting the band program, you're supporting those students with those scholarships, you're supporting students with travel to contests and various things that they do throughout the year. And there's a lot, they do a lot. Really, it is an all-season activity. I mean, obviously marching band and football in the fall. And, of course, there's activities throughout basketball season and on. And they do some of that as well. Lots of concerts, winter concerts, spring concerts, contests, solo contest, ensemble, lots of different things. They're just constantly doing something out there. So keep that in mind, and you're going to see some information come out about how you can help and, support the band boosters. Forgive me, that's a little bit of the cough showing up today. But the bottom line is that money all goes to help fund that. The Band Boosters program is a very strong one, as it's very good support for the fine arts at the high school, and we hope that you will continue to see that and support that at the concession stand again this year. So there are other ways, of course, and you'll have more information come out about that. We'll talk about that later. But all that said is that the band program is in transition. We're going to be in transition this summer with the retirement of Danny White. And so we wish him the best, of course, and wish the band program the best as they make that transition and move on into the future. So I wanted to say, he told me 32 years, I think, or maybe 33. I think 32, though, is correct. Danny White and Dana White have actually been here as a team. They were hired as a husband-wife team, and he is just completing 32 years. Dana White retired a year ago or so, and so about 30 years, 31 years for her. And so a good team that they've made, and we'll look forward to the exciting time of this transition and moving forward with the band program in the future. So all of that said, we're going to come back here in just a minute. We're going to talk about, I don't know that Andrew's going to make it today. I'm going to check on that when we go to break here in just a second. If he does, great. We'll get him in here and get him hooked up, and we'll talk to Charlie. But sorry, I call him Andrew. I call him Charlie, and this is used to call him Andrew, but it's Charlie Hickman. But if he doesn't make it in today, then we'll catch him another time. So I know work schedules and all schedules have been really tough to get all that coordinated with him. So we'll get back to that if he doesn't make it today. But we do have some more stuff in store. We want you to stick around and hear what we've got to say about this new programming coming up. We're going to tell you about that and give you some insight on how we're going to do all of that and who's going to be involved. So stick around here on the Studio Show. We'll see you in just a minute.
We'll be right back.
The Studio Show is brought to you in part by Stillwater Transfer and Storage and AAA Self-Storage.
At Davis Dental Studio, our patients are our friends. Unlike the big commercial facilities, Davis Dental Studios wants you to know you're not just a number.
We strive to bring personal and quality service to each patient. Dr. Rebecca Davis has over 18 years of experience as a caring and compassionate dentist. She and her highly trained staff will make sure your visit is a positive one. So remember, when you and your family need dental care, Davis Dental Studio. You're not just a patient, you're a friend.
In my mind, I was never going to walk right again. Before we were through, we had walked 23 steps. And that was my first steps of freedom. This patient is saying thank you.
Bank of Cushing, a branch of Blue Sky Bank Pahuska, wants you to know they are still the same friendly hometown bank. Local people that live, work, and worship right here in Cushing. Providing you the same great service, more convenient products and technology, making your local banking experience even better. A great bank, serving a great community. Bank of Cushing, a branch of Blue Sky Bank Pahuska.
Since 2003, Pro Events has had one singular focus: great audio, video, and lighting systems. Never confusing our industry with the PC crowd, Pro Events always provides you with the best, most reliable options for your house of worship, school, or corporate training facility. Make your system stand out from the crowd. And remember,
for the best AV, you know where to go visit proevents.pro.
It's all good, man.
All right, there you saw a little sneak promo of what we're talking about with Cushing Matters, and that is going to start here sooner rather than later. We've got the regular commission meeting coming up next Monday, I believe, the 15th. I think that's the 15th. I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but I believe it is. And so what we're going to do there is we're also going to simulcast the meeting, so that is going to be available to hopefully a wider audience. The goal there is in this program is to get that information out, get people engaged and involved, educate you a little bit on the process going on. But we're going to go further than that in the Cushing Matters segment. Let me give you a little history kind of on how Cushing Matters evolved and how long that's been since we've kind of had that working title for the show out for a long time. And it goes way back, and it'll tell you how long some of these guys have been involved with the Hub Network here, and we've been working together on this long before technology really would support what we were trying to do. So years and years ago, I think probably back in 2003, 2004, 2005, right in there, Don Amon and I were shooting a show called Cushing Matters. And Don, really the primary host, excuse me, for that show, and I was sitting alongside him then at that time. And really it was more of the concept of what the studio show is today. We were interviewing people about the things that they were doing in the community, the impact they were having in the community, and talking to them about how they were doing that, why they were doing it, their motivation for that, and the like. And so that name was a very important to us because it talked about all the matters, all the things that affected Cushing and affected the progress of Cushing and how it developed over the years. And so we held on to that name, and we've just kind of had it there parked for a while. We probably shot, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 episodes of that show, and then we got distracted and got moved off of that. We were working on some other things. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it just didn't work out to where we really actually aired the show. We never aired it. And so Don and I used to joke all the time about that was the number one internet TV show that never aired in Cushing that nobody ever saw. It had the highest ratings of any non-viewed show on the internet. And so anyway, I'm not sure the internet was quite capable of even delivering that show. We were probably still doing some of that on the old CTV network, the government network, and all that stuff. A lot different than it is today. Andrew Katz was the city manager back then, and we have been talking to him about doing some public awareness things for the commission and the city, getting that information out, help disseminating that information to the general public, and with the purpose of engaging and drawing the public in a little bit to be more educated on what is going on at City Hall. And so we have, since last year, and I could tell you a long, boring story about all of that, but we've had this on our mind for a long time, and we just haven't really been able to do anything about it until this year. And so because of the way post-COVID that the city are broadcasting their meetings, commission meetings, we can now simulcast and tag team with them and don't have to run all the cable, don't have to take all the manpower down to the City Hall, set up all the cameras and do all that sort of thing. So it is extremely easier and a lower profile setup. And so that makes that easy and so easier. So we can do that from the studio here. So in light of that, we started thinking about how we could re-engage the public, especially after this last election. We, of course, did a forum as we had done in the past years, engaging the candidates and that sort of thing. I think that stuff is all beneficial for the community, and so we'll continue to do that. But within the Cushing Matters program itself, we will go an extra step that we weren't able to do before, which was come on the air prior to the commission meeting. So you will hear the full commission meeting here on the Hub Network as well as on the city Facebook page. You can certainly follow it anywhere you want to. But the city commission meeting will be broadcast here, but it will be after we do a full show on and hear from a lot of the participants in the decision makers at City Hall, the people that are setting the agenda, the people that are making decisions based on the agenda that's brought before them. And so we're going to do that, and we want to do that with some expert perspective. So we will start about, I think, 5:45 to 6 o'clock. We haven't set the exact time, but I think it's going to be 5:45. And we'll go all the way up to 7 o'clock at the time when the City Commission meeting starts. The goal, again, here is to educate the public on the process, educate the public on what's on the agenda, maybe hear a little bit about what's going on behind the agenda from some points of view. And we'll also hear from some of the other people. Now we've got worked out most of the details. We've got a couple meetings left today and later in the week to solidify some of that. But as it stands right now, we will do this. So we'll come on the air at 5:45, and we'll talk about the current agenda and the things that we'll explain what we're doing with the show. We'll explain what we're going to cover and how we're going to cover it and that sort of thing. Bring you the latest information from City Hall. We will go into depth on the agenda. We'll go through the agenda, kind of explain what they're going to be doing in light of those things, what some of those decisions mean, what the perspective, so sorry, and what the perspective is there on the agenda, and how it may affect the decisions that are going forward and why they're being decided on the way they are. Now, within that, I thought it was very important to have again, kind of some expert perspective that we could. So it just so happens that in the meantime, when we started Cushing Matters, Don became a sitting commissioner. He was a commissioner, I believe, for 6 years. During that time, he was also chairman of the board, our mayor of Cushing for some time, I want to say 2 or 3 years as well. And so he will be, now that he is co-hosting this with me, that is good perspective already right there to have his point of view as being kind of behind the curtain, if you will, what goes on behind the scene, what goes on possibly in executive sessions, what they talk about, why they can't talk about it, what some of that subject matter is. Don't get me wrong, he won't be revealing anything, I don't think, that he couldn't reveal, of course, but he does have an inside track on what goes on in city commissions, and he does know, obviously, some of the players there at the City Commission pretty well, and he might be able to add some perspective to that too. So I look forward to Don not only being entertaining and engaging himself, I mean it is Don Amon, Dr. Don Amon now, but he will deliver his point of view as he always does with quite a bit of humor attached, I'm sure, and his perspective. But he is a very, very serious player in the sense that he knows exactly how all that works, and he's been there not too long ago. So it's just been a couple of years removed since he's been on the commission. Not only Don, After dawn, we will have the current chairman of the city commission will come on for about 5 minutes or so and kind of explain his point of view. We'll have some questions for him. We'll have some things that he can answer and maybe clarify or talk about what they're going to do a little bit prior to the meeting as well. Now, what also happens at the same time is that Mr. Brandon, the current city manager, also releases his city manager's report. And that is a pretty detailed report. If anybody has seen that or receives it, it's very extensive. I know it to be at least 13 pages, sometimes 18 pages long. And it talks about all the capital projects that are going on in each department. It really covers every department at the city, and it tells you in detail. Now, it's so much information that sometimes it's things can get lost in there, and things they don't translate very well in text. And so we've offered to Mr. Brandon to come on the show prior to the city commission meetings and give a few minutes there to answer some questions from us and to give his point of view and perspective of what he's put out and kind of point us in the right direction on the city manager's report and kind of highlight those things that he wants to make note of that are important to Cushing and important to the progress that Cushing is making here. So we will have that as well. And that will be a short segment inside the show. All of that surrounded by our visiting about the agenda items and about how all that's going to go. Now, I think we wanted to take it one step further, and this is what we're still waiting on here a little bit as a final answer on who this is going to be. We have the majority of the panel filled, but we're going to have an expert panel at the end of the show after we take in all of that information from the agenda to the city manager's report to the questions for the chairman, Don's point of view and what he's got going on, what he thinks, and all of those points of view are going to be rolled into one, and we're going to have a three-person panel, expert panel, the Masters panel, the Cushing Matters Master panel is going to come on, and they'll come on each show, and they'll give their point of view. And the idea there is not to have the same point of view. And when I tell you who is going to be on the panel, then or potentially be on the panel, then you will have an idea of maybe what their point of view is going to be. But it will be a point of view of knowledge, behind the scene knowledge. It will be either a former commissioner or somebody that is very plugged in and engaged in the process, or somebody that has held elective office in some form, not necessarily Cushing city politics, but maybe from other political spectrum, the political spectrum outside of Cushing. But they will have a point of view as an elected official or as a former, not as an elected official, but a former elected official. We don't want any conflicts of interest here, and we want them to be free to give their point of view, but they will come on and kind of analyze that stuff for us and tell us what they think is really going on behind the scene. And so that hopefully will bring some perspective to each city commission meeting. So when you do watch, so when we end up at the end of the show, we'll be right at 7 o'clock, and we'll turn it over to the simulcast coming through from City Hall. You'll be able to watch that commission meeting with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh point of view and kind of hear what's going on at City Hall and why those decisions are being made the way they are and how those decisions really are made. What we don't have right now in our current process, what we don't have very much of right now, is we don't get publicly, is that we don't get to hear the perspectives and the discourse and a little bit of the debate that may go on in some of these decisions. Those things are already set when the agenda comes out. Those decisions are ready to be made. Now, obviously, commissioners have to vote. They cast a vote for a reason. That is where they officially say, yes, we are in favor of that, or no, we don't want to go that way, or they abstain, or whatever they do. So, but in light of that, you will have a fresh set of eyes to kind of see what is going on in the city commission and be engaged in that in the sense of now we know why they're doing what they are, or we know what the details behind possibly what they're deciding and what the impact of that may be in Cushing. And so we appreciate, I will say this, we appreciate all of the city commissioners and Mrs. Dow that's coming on to fill Mr. Griffith's vacated spot as he resigned here last week before the budget meeting. She will sit now and fill that spot until there's the next election or until that term is expired, I believe. But all of those points of view will be represented. Now, each commissioner will not come on necessarily during that show. They have a lot going on right there, but we will bring them in from time to time and put them in there and get to hear from them as these decisions go forward and as these things are kind of laid out in front of us. And so we want to bring more perspective and more discourse and more public discourse to that. Now, we want you to participate as well. You can always send an email to theSTUDIOshow 102 at gmail.com. You can use that email to send it in, a Cushing Matters question or a question about, shoot for the coaches show later on, whatever. But that email address will be how you correspond with us here at this network. So the Studio Show is kind of the all-encompassing show that will carry those other broadcasts as well. And you'll see that right here on the Studio Show Facebook page, as well as on the Cushing Hub Network Cushing Facebook page, and on the Hub Network Oklahoma Facebook page. All of those will broadcast all of this content. So we hope to move things forward from this studio setting, doing things a little bit differently than we've done in the past, and getting out some information that will engage, inform, educate, and hopefully entertain you a little bit as well. And you'll get to hear some things that maybe you don't get to hear a point of view. If you can ask some questions, if you have a question that you really want answered. I know there are a lot of basic questions, excuse me, that need to be answered, and we're working on some of those. Some things that have had a normal perception about how things work at City Hall. We hope to attack those questions and get solid answers for those. For example, one question I think that is a common question, that is a pretty recurring question, ongoing question for citizens, is what happens to the reserve money? We have to save. Cushing says, and we heard it again in this last budget meeting, we need to save between 30 and 50% and put that in reserve in case some catastrophe happens or something happens that we get shut down and we can't offer it, kind of like COVID, be a good example. So what happens with that money? How does that money set aside? Where does it go? How does it accumulate? Does it accumulate? Does it accumulate over time? How do we track that? And how do we get a report of what that actually is or what it ended up? What do we do with the money? Because that is a big chunk of money when you're talking about 30 to 50% of a budget. Well, that's a lot of money. And so you want to know where that is. Most people have a perception of, well, there's this accumulated money every year and it goes over here in this account and we never touch it. It's in the rainy day fund. And so we are getting, we've been drilling down on that answer right there to get a clean, clear, articulated answer. I've been asking that question for a long time, and I understand that kind of how it works, but I want it clear and clean, just like you would if you're balancing your checkbook at the end of the month. You know exactly where every penny is and how much you have to use and how much you don't have to use. And so we want it to be that clear to you. And so we will continue to drill down on that question until we get a good answer and it's explained, and we can articulate that back to you. So those are some examples of some things that we want to make clear. We want to bring that clearly to the public. We want it all out in the open. We want those to be shine a bright light on those things and to clear up any issues that may be, if you're thinking of running for a commission seat or you're thinking of doing some of those things, maybe some of this will answer some of the questions that you have and maybe focus your attention on a few other things. There was a lot of talk in the last election, of course, about annexation. Can we do that? Can you abstain from voting on certain things? Can you do? So we want to tackle all of that stuff, and we want to bring a clear explanation of what we can do and what we can't do, and why. And so we not just asking the political people that sit in the seat that are responsible politically. Yes, we want to hold their feet to the fire. We want them to be accountable, and we want that information to be disseminated to the public. But we want to have a clear understanding of how it really works, why we do things that way, and why we can't do things other ways. And I think in the long run, that becomes very beneficial for the city of Cushing because we can focus so much more on what we can do and not worry so much about what we aren't doing or can't do because we legally can't do that, or we can't do that for other reasons, whatever the reason is. So that's the kind of education and information we want to bring to you throughout on this show. So the Cushing Matters show will follow the commission meeting schedule. Now, I don't know exactly if we will catch all the special meetings. We probably will have some information during special meetings. We may not have a full-blown show, but every month on the scheduled commission meeting day, which is the third Monday of every month, we will put this show on the air prior to the commission meeting. And we do it before the commission meeting. I'm not going to wait till after because, one, we know exactly when the commission meeting starts, which is 7, and we can plan on that. But we also want you to know when you watch the commission meeting what you're watching for, what you're hearing, why you're hearing it, and give you some fresh set of eyes and fresh set of thoughts about that when you're thinking about it from the information that we've been able to bring you to. So all of that we hope to be very beneficial to the community. We hope to be very enlightening and entertaining as well. And you get to hear a lot of different perspectives. We're going to try to get as many people involved in it as we can, at least 3 people that are consistently on our master panel. Mr. Dr. Don Amon, who will sit here and from his point of view as a former commissioner and mayor, chairman of the board, if you will explain some things and give us some good insight there. And we'll also hear again from the city manager and the chairman of the board each time as well. And we'll also include probably, as we can, some other commissioners in there as well. Or we'll also have them on the studio show and dedicate some more time to longer answers. Now, we also want to talk to other officials in the city government, like Jerica Worthy, who handles a lot of the finances. She is going to be in on the studio show at some point, and maybe we'll get a more common, down-to-earth explanation of how some of these finances work. Obviously, to her, she handles these numbers all the time, every day, and it's very commonplace to her. But explaining that to the average citizen is a little difficult. There's a lot of numbers. It's a complex. The budget for the city is complex. It's not always as straightforward as we would want it to be. So we're going to try to do our best to talk to all those people in the mix there. Jonathan Huseman is another one. Matter of fact, Mr. Huseman asked this question in the last budget meeting. He brought up the fact that a lot of people still assume that there's this big pile of money somewhere in the city. And I'm not saying that there's not. I don't know exactly. I wish I knew exactly where it all was, and I could explain it exactly to you. But we're going to find out. I want to know exactly where it is and if it's there and why we don't use it or why we should use it or what we can use it for. We're going to figure all that stuff out. So all those things, Mr. Huseman knows. I mean, the people at the city government know that that's an ongoing question. And I really believe their desire is to explain it as well. We just have to figure out a way to articulate all of that information to everyone in the public so that it makes sense to you. And that's where we want you to participate. If something is not clear, if you want to expound on something, if you want to delve into another issue that maybe we haven't tackled yet, use that email and send us a note and let us know, and we will certainly look into that and try to get the information going for you. So we want you to be more informed, more educated, more engaged, and this is one way that we can facilitate that, and we hope that you will join us for those. So the first one, we may not have everything quite together for this first show. I don't know that we'll have the master panel completely seated yet, or there's some training to do, there's some technical things to do with them and some working out of all that sort of stuff. So there's a little bit of infrastructure there that we need to work through as well, which we're in the process of doing, but we have to get everybody on board and kind of get them up to speed so that they're comfortable. And really, they'll be able to do this from anywhere in the world, anywhere they have a cell phone they can have has a connection. Excuse me. They will be able to participate and be on the air with us during that time. So we'll announce who those people are possibly in the next week or so as we come to that show. We won't have them on necessarily next week for the first show on the May 15th meeting, but starting in June, most likely, we'll have all of that worked out. Everyone will be seated, but we are planning on the 15th doing a show and having the city manager and the chairman of the board and Mr. Don Amon in here beside me as well on that show. So it will be as full a show as we can make it on the 15th, and we will continue to develop that on through the summer, into the fall, and on from now on. And so we want to establish that as a good source for you and for all the viewers out there. We appreciate everybody that has come alongside us and tuned in and watched the shows. We had 2 really good guests the last 2 weeks. I mean, they're very, very articulate ladies. Emily Moore, as the new drama instructor at Cushing High School, she put on a pretty big task with Mamma Mia down there, and the kids did a great job. If you didn't get a chance to see that, I can just tell you, we might have some highlights of that maybe later on. We'll bring her back and talk about what she's going to do next year, because she created a big job for herself to outdo what she did this year. Those students did a really excellent job putting that on. boy, they were just really right on point. I mean, their acting was good, their choreography was good, their vocals were good. It was all really a very energetic and great show. So if you missed that, we wished you would have gotten out and been able to see that, but you might get to hear a little bit more about it as we go forward. But certainly next year, when those things come up at the high school, you need to get out and see the talent of these kids out there, because it's pretty impressive. So anyway, Emily Moore was on the show. She did a great job. Jennifer Hixon last week with Tiger Lily, she was very energetic. She almost she really took over the show, and she did a great job. She made it a full arrangement right here for us, right on the spot. Finished it up. Didn't think she was going to get it finished, but she did make it. We went a couple of minutes over, but she got it in there and got it done. A beautiful job, and everybody's really been responding to that on our Facebook pages and on certain posts, and we appreciate her and her effort in getting that done. And if you've got some stuff, you need something for Mother's Day, you need some flowers or whatever, get down there and see Jennifer this week and get orders in. And one thing that she stressed while she was here on the show is that it's never too late to order. You think it's last minute, you think, oh, I've waited too long, nobody can get that done. Jennifer says, we live for the last minute, so bring it on. Call us at the last minute, test us, see if we can get it done for you. We'll do it best we can. So she's all about it, her crew's all about it, and she wants to get that done for you. So keep that in mind for Mother's Day coming up this weekend. All right, we're going to take another break. We'll be back, and we'll give a little bit of a wrap-up here, and we'll talk about some other things that we've got going on, and we'll see you here in just a minute on The Studio Show.
We'll be right back.
At Davis Dental Studio, our patients are our friends. Unlike the big commercial facilities, Davis Dental Studios wants you to know you're not just a number. We strive to bring personal and quality service to each patient. Dr. Rebecca Davis has over 18 years of experience as a caring and compassionate dentist. She and her highly trained staff will make sure your visit is a positive one. So remember, when you and your family need dental care, Davis Dental Studio. You're not just a patient, you're a friend.
Well, hello, Whitney. How are you?
John. So here's the proposal packet for the new mobile app.
As long as I'm running this thing, there ain't gonna be no mobile app.
Introducing the new mobile app, making your banking experience even easier. It's so easy, even John can use it. Bank of Cushing, a branch of Blue Sky Bank, Pawhuska.
We have a help tab if you need help. We will have...
I won't need help. I'm pretty good at this.
You are good at this.
Since 2003, Pro Events has had one singular focus: great audio, video, and lighting systems. Never confusing our industry with the PC crowd, Pro Events always provides you with the best, most reliable options for your house of worship, school, or corporate training facility. Make your system stand out from the crowd. And remember,
for the best AV, you know where to go visit proevents.pro.
When you have a team of physicians and nurses that really truly care about their patients, that translates into patient care.
It's a small practice, it's a small town. Everybody really takes that time to put the patient first.
Everybody cares what's happening to me and that I'm making progress and I'm gaining my freedom back and my mobility back. This patient is saying thank you.
RCB Bank is more than a transaction. We work to make your life easier. We help build your business. We finance your dreams. We grow your legacy. We build relationships with our communities. Come in to find out why our customers always say, RCB Bank. That's my bank.
The Studio Show is brought to you in part by Stillwater Transfer and Storage and AAA Self-Storage.
good, man.
All right, there you have it, a little promo, a little rough promo. It's a rough draft of a promo that you'll be seeing for Cushing Matters. We're really excited about that show coming up, and I think it's going to do some real good here in the community as far as information and disseminating that in a way that people can go back and look at and archive and keep up with all that stuff a little bit better. And we want to do our service, our part here, as everybody else in the media does here in Cushing, as far as informing and getting out of that information, the correct information. We want it to be correct and usable and beneficial to all those watching. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully Monday you're going to be seeing a lot coming up around this next commission meeting on the 15th, and that'll be at 5:45 to 7 o'clock. So stay with us and watch the first episode. There's always some rough things that we'll work out on the first episode, so if you want to catch some behind-the-scenes stuff and a lot of mistakes, that's probably the show to watch for sure. So anyway, listen, we've had a lot of great guests on the show. We've had a lot of good things going on here, and we appreciate all the support on that. We appreciate all the support from our sponsors over the whole year, through football season, through the great season that the Tigers had this last year, making it to the finals. Came up a little bit short in the finals, but man, pretty exciting getting to that point and really just dominating all the teams through the regular season and really into the playoffs. That final game, though, ran into a buzzsaw in the sense that the coach, very experienced, and just kind of drew up the game plan and just executed very, very well, and we just could not find a way around it. The coach for Wagner basically kept our offense off the field, which was the big cannon, right? It was the big guns, for Cushing. We could really score at will, and he just kept us off the field. And when you can run the ball like Wagner did and get 4th and 5 or 4th and 4, 4th and 1, anytime you need it, it's going to be really tough to beat that team, and it proved as well. And then obviously they kicked that field goal there at the end, and that was just a heartbreaker for all of the athletes on the Tigers. And I know a lot of them have dealt with that, and of course, and it's built good character in all those athletes, and they've gone on. We're going to tell you a little bit about some of those athletes that have gone on. I want to tell you that the Hub Extra will be coming out in August as well. We're going to have some information in there about some of the athletes that have moved on and signed with other teams, not necessarily in football, but maybe other sports as well, and kind of where they've gone, some of the seniors. So we're going to highlight, again, some of the seniors from the past team in the Hub Extra. We don't usually put the past team's roster in the magazine, but we felt, of course, this year that it would be appropriate. We're going to accompany that with some stats and some information about them as well. And so that will be something that you'll want to get a hold of and keep. We're also going to go back to some things that we've done in the past and that are informative, I think, for readers and for viewers. And that is, in the Hub Extra, you're going to hear some from Dr. Melissa Amon. Now, she is going to be in the studio here on the 31st, and we look forward to having her and what she has to say about all the projects, all the new school being built out there by the middle school, and kind of how all that process kind of comes together. We may even show you the original, if I can pull it back up and look at it, we may show you the original bond video that was shot for the first bond issue where the middle school was built with that bond approval. And maybe we had some interviews there with Colin at the time. Colin was the superintendent, of course, at the time then. And but now Dr. Melissa Amon is now the superintendent, and she will continue that information with talking about the school going up out there and the challenges that there are there, and how well it's going, and what we can expect as far as completion of that project. So we'll talk about that, and some of the benefits of having that all the schools, upper and lower elementary schools, kind of in the same concept out there at that facility. So we will hear from her on all that. I think that will be very interesting as well. We will continue to keep you updated a little bit on what's going on with the school board, and of course, and what's going on, the decisions that they're making, the decisions that Dr. Amon are making on a daily basis, for Cushing Public Schools and moving that school district forward, and all the things. There's a lot of information, and they have been putting out a lot of information every day about achievements in not only athletics but in academics. And everything. So if you visit their Facebook page, you'll see that we try to keep up with as much of that and repost as much of that as we can so that you can get more eyes on that and see it, maybe a little bit. So we try to keep you informed there as well. So all of those things are on our radar from week to week, and we have an intent to make sure that you are informed of those things and you're kind of plugged in. And we want you to turn to the Studio Show and find those things, or turn to Cushing Matters and find those things on a regular basis. And we hope that we are able to continue bringing those to you. We could not do what we're doing without the sponsorship that we ask the people in the community for, businesses in the community. It is very, very crucial to all of this. And we don't come out and ask you every single time we put on a new show or come up with more content. Most of our sponsors that have been with us for years and years and years and years, and we so appreciate them. Blue Sky Bank and Davis Dental Center and Davis Dental Studio and everyone of the like that just have done so much for us. Stillwater Medical Center, all of these guys that really invest in you, and the fact that they want you to be plugged in, they want you to have this programming come to you, and hopefully you can get it wherever you are. And that's kind of the point here too. So we'll continue to develop all of that stuff. We'll continue to engage you as viewers. And if you want to see something more, please let us know. We want to hear from you. And if you want to be a sponsor, we have people call every now and again and say, hey, I'd like to support what you're doing. Please do that. Give me a call. You can just call Joe Kennedy here, and we can visit with you about that. And there's no problem. We'll work out whatever we need to work out for you. So we appreciate all of that so much, and we appreciate all of our viewers so much. Keep spreading the word, and we'll keep doing our best to bring you all of that information. So thank you for watching today. It's a little bit different show. I'm sorry we didn't have Charlie Hickman in the studio. We'll get him back. We'll have him in here another time. But we appreciate all of you viewers, and we appreciate all of the feedback that you've given us so far, and we look forward to much, much more of that. Stay tuned for Monday. We look forward to bringing you the first real episode of Cushing Matters around the City Commission meeting. We'll see you again next time on the Studio Show next week. See you guys.
Thank you for watching The Studio Show. People, community, progress.